Nobody touch me, I'm fragile.
So this is a little overdue as a video. There's basically life stuff happened, but I've been planning to do this for a while. That's because I want to talk about The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie. Also, I really hope I said her name correctly. Sorry if I didn't. Where do I even begin with this book? Like, there's literally so much that I kind of want to word vomit about this book, so I'm like, gonna do my best to reasonably collect my thoughts and feelings and opinions so that I can bring it in a semi-organized manner. Okay, let's get our go stones on the board here. I love Korean mythology and folklore, but I'm in no way gonna call myself any kind of like expert on the topic because most of what I've experienced has admittedly come from Korean dramas or any other books, random things I've looked up. But that is part of the thing, is what little I've experienced always leaves me wanting to know more about like whatever god, creature, folk tale, whatever I'm presented with. I usually will then try and search out more because I get curious and I get interested in it. Which of course means I'm familiar with the tale of Shim Cheong. If I remember the tale correctly, girl decides to sell herself to sea merchants as a sacrifice to the Dragon King so that her blind father can regain his eyesight. Her filial piety is so moving to the Jade Emperor and the Dragon King that they put her in a lotus flower and send her back up to the living realm, where she's chosen as the new wife of the Song Dynasty Emperor and gets to reunite with her father, where boom, his eyesight is magically restored. Oh man,
The patriarchal societal values and internalized misogyny. Oh, we reeking of it.
I mean, if it isn't obvious enough, Shim Cheong as a character really has no agency in her folktale beyond the choice to sell herself off to the sea merchants to then be flung into the sea. Yeah, that's not a good look. I'm assuming that Axie just like looked at this, saw all of that nonsense, laughed, and said, hold my soju. Our main character in Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, which, if you have not guessed, is a play upon the tale of Shim Cheong, ain't no agencyless heroine. In fact, she even frequently points out in the novel that her fate belongs to her, in basically direct defiance to the tale in which she ends up sort of finding herself. Yes, she makes the choice to sacrifice herself to the Dragon King, but like, that's the thing. She makes that choice herself. It's not her selling herself to sea merchants who then choose to fling her into the sea. She's the one who runs up, pushes Shim Cheong aside, like cuts her hand, looks directly into that dragon's eyes and is like, Anyong, Naya. Even when characters within the story attempt to steal her agency, whether it be her soul/voice, like hello, Little Mermaid vibes, I see you, like she stays true to herself and never lets anyone else decide her fate. Fuck yeah. Fuck the patriarchy, girl, you go. Which kind of actually means we kind of need to talk about fate. Like, fate and the characters' relationship to the idea of fate is probably one of my favorite parts of this novel. And I think it's really the linchpin of what holds it all together. It's also the theme that I point to and not saying, now that is how you retell a classic folktale. Fate is often called a fickle thing, and the constant war between fate and free will or self-determination, whatever you want to call it, pops up in many a myth all over the world. Ya girl had to read Oedipus, Tyrannus, the Iliad, and Agamemnon more than once, trust me when I say, I read me some mythic tales about fate. Fate is something really quite tangible in this novel, and it appears in the form of the classic red thread of fate. I'm pretty sure this originates in Chinese mythology, but as far as I can remember, it's usually thought of as an invisible red string around the finger of those who are destined to meet one another in a certain situation due to them being each other's true love/soulmate. And when I say soulmate, I mean like regardless of time, place, circumstances, etc. Like these two people are meant to be, to the point that this magical cord, while it may stretch and tangle, will never break. Literally never. It's a thing. Super casual. I know. But fate is not always as humans, or even gods, believe. And Mina's grandmother in the story makes this very wise comment to her of, don't trust fate, Mina. Let fate chase you. Basically, don't fall in line with what you think is your predetermined role. Run and run and run in whichever way or direction you choose, with your own decisions to forge your own life.
Because your life belongs to you and to no one else. You are not made by fate. Fate is made by your choices. Fuck yeah. Preach louder for the people in the back, Harmony. You go.
But like, this is why I love our protagonist. This is why I love Mina. I love how she never wavers in this belief that she controls her own fate. even when it seems to be predetermined, even when it seems like she needs to fall in line, like she never does, and it's so beautiful to witness. Also, she's just like awesome, okay? Like, I want to hang out with Mina. She's the full spectrum of complex emotions, and I felt them along with her as she was feeling them. She felt so raw and real, which, like, when you're thrown into the spirit realm of gods and monsters, it's a huge bonus for your protagonist / POV character to feel real. By the way, the spirit realm, like, it's awesome. I love it. I'm a sucker for any place like this in stories, and Axie's imagination just sort of like runs wild and free in a way that is so delightfully refreshing. Yet also kind of comfortably familiar. I could see this world in all of like its colors and details, and every character had a unique voice that helped me easily kind of picture them in my mind. Note, in my mind, also everyone is basically disgustingly gorgeous, like in any kind of K-drama, but I think we can understand why on that front. I also love that this is a standalone story. Like, it knew how long to stay, how to balance between beauty and terror, and so I'm left like only sad that it's over. Because part of me wants to remain in the spirit realm and have adventures with Mina, Shin, Namgi, Kirin, and company. Like, I would absolutely just take an entire novel of them going on side quests. But, you know, all dreams must come to an end. And I'm really happy that Axie let us dream with her. Okay, from this moment forward, I should give a warning that I'm going to be talking about spoilers. Everything previous to this has been pretty free of spoilers. I've given you just sort of a big overarching discussion. But this, I'm about to talk about very specific spoilers involving the second and the third act of this novel. So if you haven't read it, if you haven't guessed, I highly recommend that you read it. If you have read it or you just don't care about spoilers, we need to address the spoilery elephant or dragon in the room, which is the reveals in this novel. I'll preface this by saying the reveals in this novel are not bad. I'm not in any way saying they are bad or they were not done well. They're done extremely well. I'm just a nerd. And I figured them all out before they happened. And like some of them to me were even like painfully obvious, but that's because if you have even a smidgen of knowledge of like Korean and like neurotology, you'll probably get a bunch of the twists before they happen. So like, let's talk about the biggest reveal, which is also the biggest for me. Like, wow, really? Like, I saw it coming. I'm not mad, but like, okay. This is the most glaringly obvious, and that's Shin is the sea god. Or as I'm used to hearing him called the Dragon King. So you've heard me use that. Now I'm basically using it interchangeably. In the book, he's called the sea god. I've heard that character named as the Dragon King, so I tend to default to that, but they're the same thing. So if I'm now using both, same character. Here's the first reason I found this obvious. His name is Shin. Fun fact, in Korean, the word Shin literally means God. It was like naming Remus Lupin and saying he's a werewolf. You named him Wolfie McWolf. Of course he's a werewolf. And then you tell me Shin is a god, and then he's the sea god. I'm like, his name is basically God McGod. Of course he's a god.
Duh.
And then, you know, they have the idea that, like, this emperor had disappeared all these, like, I don't know, like, centuries ago? And the sea god has demanded female sacrifice or a bride to calm his anger. Except that, you know, like, it never does. Like, if you've got to to me, this seems like if you've got to sacrifice something every year, then I think you need to consider when, like, you should only have to do it once, right? Like, I think you need to consider that A, you're either doing something wrong, or B, you're worshiping a false god / getting bad information from the person who is supposedly a god. Combine that with this thing that is introduced of having the idea of the Imugi versus dragons. So the character of Namgi in the story is an Imugi. They are not quite dragons, but they're similar to, and so you have the idea of the Imugi being these lesser or like false dragons. And so I think you can kind of easily see where this is going. We set up that idea. Not only that, we then go back to this red string of fate. And how easy it is for apparently every bride before Mina, and including even Mina, to have their string cut, the string that connects them to the Dragon King. I'm like,
Excuse me? Say what? Sir, I don't think you're supposed to be able to do that. Seems kind of sus.
I'm just saying. Seems sus. And then if I like continue to go down like narrative nerd lane, you've got this sea god isn't a real god, or at least he's certainly not the true sea god. Our Dragon King has in fact been here all along, wandering the spirit realm without his soul. Shin. God has always been there, just not where he was supposed to be. And like the little pebble in the garden with the lotus flower carved onto it, obviously a referencing back that the Sea God and the Jade Emperor sent back Shim Cheong in a giant effing lotus. Like, come on now, guys. Did nobody see this coming? Again, let me stress, though, this is not a knock against the book. It made me cackle to myself. I actually found it immensely clever. And I enjoyed watching Axie lead all the other characters to this revelation that I had already figured out / guessed. And that's part of the fun. Oh, also that Kirin is a Kirin. You know, like the mythological creature. I really don't know if this was supposed to be like a reveal, but like it sort of felt like it in the book where they make this big deal of like what is Kirin, and I'm like, did Mina really like never guess by his name that he's quite literally the thing he's named as? Like, Mina, girl, come on now. A Kirin is a thing. Very much a thing. As for the kind of last one, which I actually thought was one of the most touching, which is the idea of Dai, Mask, and Miki being actually, excuse me, Mina's ancestor spirits that are still hanging out in the spirit realm. Yeah, I guessed that. Though I'll be completely honest, it was kind of, I threw it out to the wind like, okay, but like, what if? It was a fluke guess. That one admittedly was a fluke guess, and I'll freely admit, like, I can't say I'm anything close to clever for that. It was a lucky guess. But like, also, can I get a book that's basically just us having side quests in the spirit realm with like our spirit realm squad? Because I would be about that. I'd be very about that.